All right. Today, my challenge is this. I've got a very complex subject that I'm going to attempt to boil it down into something that you can take away and use in your business today. So, again, this topic is I use it, this technology I use all the time. It's a very powerful technology that can be used in a lot of different areas. So, for today's live stream, I'm going to talk about what thinking system is in charge of your life. And so, what I'm referring to is a technology called spiral dynamics that I've spoken about in past posts. And spiral dynamics has identified 8 levels of thinking that we all have our capability to have. And sometimes it's referred to as 8 levels of consciousness. And Nelson Mandela, when he became president of South Africa, he used this technology to end apartheid in the country by understanding the different thinking systems that were in his country. And he was faced with, some significant challenges with some of the thinking that led to years and years of racism and segregation and whatever. But he was able to use this technology to navigate through that and come up with effective solutions and get shifts in people's perceptions and in how they solve things. Really, really incredible stuff. So for today is I'm going to give you sort of the 30,000 foot view of how spiral dynamics works so that you'll be able to use this technology and benefit from it after this call. And I'll try to avoid going into the details, which I can go into sometimes. Anyway, so I'm going to give you the academic definition of spiral dynamics, and then I'll give you an example so it'll be clear. Spiral dynamics basically describes how our values and worldviews emerge from our interaction with our life conditions and your mind capacities. So what does that all mean? That's the academic definition. So the example I'm going to give, let's say you grew up on an island in the middle of the Pacific where you had no connection to the internet, you were cut off from the outside world completely. The only thing you had to worry about is to be able to build a shelter for yourself, collect some nuts and berries, and find water. That was your world. That's your world. That's all you had to worry about. So living in that type of environment, your mind capacity only has to deal with some pretty simple things. Conversely, if you were a CEO of a large company in New York City, you're dealing with a much more complex environment and a much more complex life as far as dealing with business challenges and whatever. And so you couldn't exist as a CEO at level 1 thinking, because level 1 thinking would be all that you would need if you were living on that island, just having to collect some nuts and berries. So what happens is, so that's all the thinking system that you need if you're living on that island. Or typically a baby, when they first come in the world, they're at level 1 thinking. They don't need much more. All they're about is survival. Going back to the island, though, let's say you're on this island, you're all by yourself, you're stranded, and then all of a sudden these canoes show up and a whole bunch of other new people come to the island, and now you've got a group. Typically what's going to happen, you'll move to the next level of level 2 thinking, which is called tribal. And tribal is about coming together a group to protect each other and serve each other for the greater good of everybody. But it's not much more complex than that, but it's a little bit more complex than level 1. And I'm not going to bore you by going through all 8 levels. If you want, just message me, contact me somehow, and I'll send you a summary sheet that will describe each level and what it means. And I think you'll find it very useful. What I'm more focused on today, without boring you with all the detail, is just some practical applications of this. And we're just scratching the surface, but my hope is to get you interested in this And if you have an interest, let me know and I'll go into greater depth on how other ways you can use this. So as a very practical example is most of my clients that I work with are business owners. And when I start off with them, I pay really close attention to where their center of gravity is on their thinking system out of these 8 levels. And the reason that's important is that think of like each level of thinking almost like a different language. And so if the person I'm interacting with, the business client that I have, is at this level of thinking system, and I'm speaking to that person, if they're 5 and I'm speaking to them at a 4 level thinking system, it's not going to work. There'll be a disconnect. And to make matters worse, if you speak in a thinking system above where their center of gravity is, they have no comprehension at all. You're speaking a completely different foreign language. And so it's really important because a lot of times when I'm working with a business owner, oftentimes I'm looking for ways to get their drive up. And what strategy I take will be more from a 5 level strategy than something above that won't make any sense to them. So there's a lot of application too if you work as a consultant or in business coaching or whatever, or if you have to motivate staff, understanding these thinking systems. So anyway, the most common thinking system that I see with my business owners is called level 5. And level 5 is called Striver Driver, and they have little nicknames for each level. And so with this thinking system, which is very different than all the others, this thinking system is driven by success. It's driven by having the right strategies to be successful. It's about materialism. It's about image, status. It's about growth. And here, rational thinking and science are king at this level of thinking, and they definitely see power in hierarchy. So it's a very specific type thinking system, yet this thinking system is perfect for a business owner. It has all the elements that you need to be a successful business owner. The only challenge with it, and this goes back to the talk today about which thinking system is in charge of your life. Oftentimes, let me first say this, is whatever your center of gravity is, like I said, a lot of my business owners are at 5, is what they have is you have to go through you don't skip over a thinking system, so you have the resources of all the low levels below you, and the resources in each different level. But if they're at 5, they don't have access to the resources at 6 or above, although they have a capability to evolve into that. So the biggest challenge I'll see with a business owner often is, and this is where the mistakes I see, is they're stuck only at the 5 level. And at that 5 level, it's great in this one aspect. At a 5, typically, and if it's a pure 5 business owner, they're very driven to increase their sales and revenue, and fit the epitome of a striver driver. They're working hard, generate sales, grow the company. They're all about growth. What the challenge can be is if they're stuck in 5, they're not utilizing the other resources available to them, or they haven't cultivated one of their levels at a deep enough level. And typically the area that I see the biggest problem for a business owner is level 4 thinking system. It's called order in the absolute. And I'll give you their academic definition, basically saying that a 4-level thinker, rules to them or breaking the rules equals enormous pain. Making rules is enormous pleasure. And so now it's much more than that. That's the academic definition. In my experience working with a business owner is what I'm paying attention to. Does that business owner, have they cultivated their 4? Because it's critical in business that they do, is if they've cultivated their 4 and consciously move to their 4 thinking system in some application of the business, they'll be a better business owner. And what I mean by that is if their four is cultivated, or if they're conscious of the four thinking system, when they're looking at their business, and they'll start paying attention to their business optics, the accounting part of their business, that they will pay attention to those numbers. They know which drivers to push. They need to figure out where they're, burning expenses. They measure how well they're doing. They know where to make the tweaks. They pay attention to a lot of those details. Those are all indicators of four, and they have certain things to track their marketing campaigns. They pay attention to legal implications of what they're doing. They make sure they have the insurance. All those types of things are indications of a strong four. And you'll see it in your personal life as too. If you have a weak four, you will be more impulsive. You won't be more disciplined in your workouts. There's a lot of different things that will affect. So the other part that I look at also, as from a business perspective, is I look at the 5 as the offensive side of your business, where you're focused on your sales and on revenue and growing the company that way. I see the 4, if you cultivate it and are conscious of it to use it, the 4 is the defensive side of your business, where you cut the bleeding from excessive expenses. You're paying attention, those types of things. You're paying attention to those details that oftentimes a pure driver is going to find boring and not want to do, or take the easy way of something that they get excited about. So it's also important, and when you make decisions, is if the decision has second and third order consequences and could disable your business or destroy your business, then you want to approach it and maybe look at it from both angles, from your 5 thinking system of how you can grow your business if you make this decision. But equally important, you want to do the math and lay it out and say, okay, let me step into my 4 and look at what the consequences are. And oftentimes I'll have a risk assessment tool that I'll use with business owners. Now, if that person has no 4 in it, they go, I know what I'm doing. Let me charge ahead. And boy, I've seen many mistakes made that way. The other piece that you want to be aware of is with these thinking systems, that under stress, or when you get mad, that we tend to drop into our lower thinking systems, because the lower thinking systems are more evolved in us, and it's almost easier to drop into those lower thinking systems. So the most common one that I see them drop, but doesn't necessarily have to be this one, but it's a more common one, of when a business owner gets upset about something, whether it's a client that's done something to them, whether it's an employee that's done something to them, whether it's a competitor, whatever, they get mad, and typically they'll drop to level 3 thinking. Level 3 thinking is called Power God. And basically, Power God is, it's a thinking system that's very egocentric. It's a system that's very impulsive. It's a thinking system that doesn't concern itself with consequences. It just acts. And so one of my mentors has a quote that I love: high emotion equals low intelligence. Well, typically, if you go into your 3 thinking system to make decisions, you're going to be low intelligence. You're not going to make a great decision. And almost like your IQ goes down when you go to 3. But equally, when you make decisions in your personal life, is you want to pay attention to, or even in my marriage, if my wife upsets me, is I might go to my 3 as a knee-jerk reaction, but before I respond, I just sort of check in and go, what thinking system am I in now? And is that the thinking system that I want me to represent myself in my response back? And typically, if I don't pay attention to that, then I'm respond back from a 3 level. And that's where, you might say things you'll regret saying later, or you only escalate the problem. And so knowing these thinking systems and paying attention to which one is representing you is so critical. And then also, as I already stated, in dealing with other people, is knowing what thinking systems they're in, you'll be more effective in influencing people, because if you're speaking in a different thinking system than they are, you have zero traction with them. So an action item for you is, first action, if you have an interest in this, and if you understand this and start utilizing it, you will see the value of it, is message me, whichever way you want to contact me. I'll send you a summary sheet that goes through all 8 thinking systems and what the resources are. And you can begin thinking about and just sort of take a short assessment and say, where do you think your center of gravity is? Is it 5? Level 6 is more socially conscious. It's like if you, an organization that's very six thinking would be like the Democratic Party, Greenpeace. It's more about no hierarchy, egalitarian, or whatever. And so, but again, that's why you'll see, it's fascinating when you see, um, you know, the divide between Republicans, because Republican tends to be more usually 5 thinking, and they just don't communicate with each other. Anyway, so go ahead, and I would say message me on this, and I'll send it to you, and then decide which ones you think are, and then start using it. And as you run your business, pay attention to what thinking system you're in. And there's the last thing I want to say. I'm going to sort of give you the shorthand. There's more to it than this, but in essence, is if you say, I would like to evolve my thinking system and grow faster, is the best way I know. It's, again, as I said, it's the interaction of environment and mind capacity. Is if you keep challenging yourself and going into the unknown and putting yourself in uncomfortable situations, those situations are basically putting you in new environments, and those new environments are requiring you to develop a higher mind capacity. So the more you challenge yourself, if you just did that alone, that's a simple prescription to how to evolve your thinking systems. Then you will evolve it by putting yourself in different scenarios and challenges that are uncomfortable for you. It's going to require different mind capacity. And my favorite, and then I'll leave you with this, is what you find is the level 7 thinking system is called flex flow. And the beauty of a level 7 thinker is they see the importance of each thinking system. And they're usually your greatest leaders. They can communicate to someone that's at level 2, at level 3, at level 4. They understand the systems. All the thinking systems before that typically don't have that ability, or not the level 7 does. And that's why they'll tend to sort of butt heads more, especially it's the little butt heads with the systems that are right next to them. Like if you're 5, you'll butt heads with the 6, and you'll butt heads with the 4. So anyway, I hope this has been useful. If you really take a dive and look at it, you'll find it incredibly valuable. And hey, let me know, send me a message. How you doing with this? Thank you, and have a great day. Bye-bye.